Again, today we're going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about playing on bad equipment. To have a pool table level, to have it covered, I know in different parts of the country the price is a little bit different, but just to get a table recovered in my area in the Northeast, it is $650. So the average bar in some cases is just breaking even on their pool tables, so they can't really afford to have tables maintained properly. So as a result, a lot of them are just in bad shape. Also, some of the clientele is not necessarily the best advocates for pool. They're setting drinks on the table, they're sitting on the table, they're spilling food on the table, they've got food on their hands and they're touching the table. So these tables go through a lot in a very short period of time. So they're not very well maintained. Some are better maintained than others. I've played in bars that you would consider a dive bar, but at the same time, pool is very serious to them, and as a result, they take care of the equipment a lot better. So it really differs from place to place, but we're going to talk about today how do you deal with tables that just haven't been taken care of properly. So let's look at a couple situations that you might run into. The first one is the table not being level. Again, these are expensive activities, having tables leveled and resurfaced. So that's one of the things that you're going to run into very often. I played at a place in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania years ago that I will never forget. They had put the pool table on what was a dance floor, and the table was just insanely unlevel at one end of the table. The other thing was, because they had the table sitting on what was an old dance floor, the table, even though it had to weigh, I don't know, 700-800 pounds, actually moved. So I actually leaned over the table for a shot. Now, on a good day, I'm a $180, and I moved the entire table, probably about 6 inches, just by leaning on it. So some of the equipment out there is really insane as far as the maintaining of the equipment. So first thing I want to tell you is, if you're an APA coach and you've got your 6 or your 7 lined up to play and you're on bad equipment, if you have an option, sit your 6 or 7 out that night, because if they're up against a 3 or a 4, you're just in really bad shape. The reason is, bad tables, first off, bar boxes are equalizers. The better player is going to do better on a larger table. As the table gets smaller, the lesser player's skill gap narrows. So if you have bad equipment and you've got the handicap that goes along with the APA, just to give you guys an idea if you're not aware, an APA 3, I think, only has to win 2 games against a APA 7 who has to win 6. You guys can check me in the comments if I'm wrong on those numbers, but the math is something like that. On bad equipment, it's very easy for the worst players on the planet to luck into 2 games out of 8. So if you have an opportunity to sit out your higher players on bad equipment, you really should do it. And I know a lot of people don't want to sit out, but trust me, the handicap system is out the window once you look at bad equipment. If you have a table that's not quite level, chances are there's one pocket that is drawing everything towards it. Sometimes it's very extreme, sometimes it's very subtle. What you want to do in those situations is focus your balls to that end of the table. It may be at the end that you break from, or the end that you rack from. But identify this early, and you do not want to be shooting uphill, which means if this pocket is low, you do not want the majority of your shots to be focused at that direction. This is just simple math. If this pocket is low, this is going to be the most forgiving pocket. That is going to be the weakest pocket to shoot into, the pocket which is opposite that pocket. This one is probably low as well if this one is low. So what you want to do is arrange your patterns so that you are shooting into the low pockets. So that's the first thing that you want to do. So the next thing you're going to want to do if you're playing, let's say this is our fast pocket here, and we're playing the 11 ball, we want to get to the 14 ball. One of the things you want to do is limit the amount of direct access that you have to that pocket. And what I mean by that is, if I'm playing the 11 ball and I'm trying to get on the 14, one of the things that I could do would be to shoot it up and back. Now, this is a shot that just about any skilled player can make on a regular basis. The problem is, if you have a fast pocket, I'm moving the cue ball directly in this area. And if this was a low pocket on someone's table, that ball would not have come back and parked here. First off, it would have taken an inside pass and started towards this pocket. So rather than playing position where you're going to be moving in line with the pocket, anytime you have an opportunity, and I know these aren't set up exactly the same way, but anytime you have an opportunity, what you're going to do is you're going to play positioned, if it needs to be 3 or 4 rails, where you're coming towards the long rail as opposed to coming towards the pocket. Now, if you hit that shot on a super fast table that has a low pocket here, you very well could move in line with that spot and end up over here. But this rail gives you a much larger target range than coming down and trying to judge speed on this pocket with a straight shot. So let's look at another option. If you have the ability to shoot this shot with draw in right-hand English, you can see that the chances of me being pulled into this pocket become almost 0. So I'm still on my shot here. I did not risk going up and back and coming towards that low pocket. It did take a little finesse to come around the table to get to the long rail. But look for these opportunities versus these opportunities where you're moving directly at the pocket. I've got a lot more room here to play with than if I'm going up and coming back towards this pocket. So keep those things in mind as you're navigating your way around the table. Another thing that you're going to look at is situations where you've got bad rails. Now, anytime you've got bad rails, one of the things that you're going to want to do is limit the amount of position play that involves using rails. And don't get yourself, now I know a lot of intermediate players do not do this, but advanced players will. Don't get yourself in position where you're going to be looking for a bank shot. For example, if I have this three ball run here, I'm almost straight in on this 14 ball. So one of the things that I might do is stun the cue ball there, knowing that I intend on banking the 13 ball here. So given this situation, I banked the 13 and I have perfect position on the 9 ball. Well, if I've got weak rails, if I've got dead rails that I'm dealing with, I'm not going to play that same pattern. So even though it's the ideal pattern for my game, because I know that I'm a favorite to make that 13 ball, I might have to come up with something different. One of the things that you could do, if you know that the rails are weak, is use it to your advantage. Draw the cue ball back to the rail, and now you're going to be shooting in that direction. But you can see that this is not as advantageous as my first choice, because now I've got a difficult position to get on the 9 ball. So we're not on the same table where we've got a fast pocket, but we're on a table where the rails just simply aren't working out the way they should. Understand this: if the rails are bad, it doesn't just keep the ball from recoiling at the same pace that you're accustomed to. It also will change the angle that you're accustomed to. So even if you find a correct spot, if the rail isn't responding properly, then you shoot that bank shot as you always do, but this time it ends up over here, or it ends up over here, or you get a thud in worst case scenario and it just falls off and comes drifting into nowhere. So keep that in mind, that if you're a bank shooter and you've got bad rails, one of the things that you're going to want to do is avoid some of those bank shots. Now let's look at another situation where bad rails will get to us. If we're looking to get position around the table, and under normal conditions, if we shoot towards that diamond there, we're going to come around the table, we're going to head straight for this pocket. So we know what kind of position that we're going to get if we come off of this 13 ball. But if your rails are dead, if you could have a good one here, a bad one there, a bad one here, that path around the table is going to change. So one of the things that I recommend is, if you're truly serious about your game, when you show up for a match, you're going to shoot this 3-rail shot. And if it does not lead to this pocket each and every time, then you are dealing with some bad rails. You're going to shoot it from a couple different directions. Now, one of the things that you will find out is that you should have a diamond that you're working with. So on a standard table like this one, or any gold crown table with running English, you're going to aim towards that diamond from this pocket. And as you can see, you're going to come here like 90% of the time. On some tables you do need to make an adjustment, but on a table that has bad rails, you could hit that diamond from this direction and come straight to the pocket. You do it from this direction because the rails are dead on one end. You end up in a different location. You could end up here if you have a dead rail somewhere. Just keep in mind, it doesn't mean that you can't use that position with a table that has dead rails. It just means that that position is not going to be as consistent. So make sure you're making these calculations. And some of you are saying, well, these are advanced shots, I wouldn't be shooting those shots anyway. That's exactly why you don't want your 7 playing a 3 when there's bad equipment. All of his ammunition, all of the things that he's spent all the years and the thousands of hours practicing to develop, now go out the window, and he's playing on the same playing level as that 3 or that 4. So this is the reason why you take your 7 out of the match, because now you've got a situation where his English shots, his draw shot from one end of the table to the other, his 3-rail position, his 2-rail position, all of these things get compromised because you've got bad equipment, whether it's a fast pocket or a bad rail. So let's look at another situation that you might run into. So here's another situation that you might run into. Not that somebody has parked a chair in the middle of the playing area, but there are a lot of places, a lot of people's homes, a lot of people's bars, and even 1 or 2 really low-end pool halls where there are obstacles in the way. Sometimes it's a bar stool or something that you can just move out of the way, but sometimes it is something permanent. It could be a pillar. I know at my cousin's house, about this far from the end of the table, there's a pole here. And that pole means that if the cue ball is on the rail, you have to shoot like this with a short cue. It's not fun to end up against that pole. It's fun to play there because my cousins are there and we have a ball, but it's not fun to be up against that pole. So 2 things you should keep in mind. Number 1, use the obstacles to play defense. If you need to leave a guy a shot and you don't have a shot and you're playing a safety, it is better to give him this shot up against the pole than to hide him somewhere. And the reason is, he's going to take this shot, he's going to go after it, he's going to jack up, he's going to pull out that short cue and try to make this shot. And this shot is a 50-to-1 shot to most people if I put a pole behind them right here. I'm talking about the best players in the world are going to have trouble with this shot if they have to jack up that much. So one of the things you can do is use it to your advantage. But the second thing you need to remember is that that obstacle, whether it's behind you, in front of you, beside you, wherever it is, that obstacle is there. And once you know that that obstacle is there, you can play your position around the fact that you know that obstacle is there. So if I've got an obstacle here, this is a dead zone to me as far as playing position goes. So I'm not going to leave any balls in this area that have to be shot in that direction. So what you're going to do is you play your position so that if you do end up over here, you've got shots to go in this direction. if you can avoid being in this area here, and you can tell just about how wide it is, if you can avoid being in this area at all, that's what you want to do. Know where that problem zone is. Taking me back to the example of the 7 and the 3. The 3 gets bad position anyway. The 7 now has 25% of the table that he can't use for his run out. Now if you're playing against another 7 or someone else that is your rank and you both are equally as familiar with the table, that's a whole different situation. But bad tables, bad rails, bad condition tables, low pockets, any of those things are terrible equalizers. And with the handicap that everybody has to play against, it is just not going to be a good idea. So, hope you guys found these tips beneficial. Hit me in the comments, let me know what were the worst tables you ever played on, where were they? I actually would like to put together a community that just talks about where the worst tables are in different areas around the country so that good players can avoid them. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon, and hit me up in the comments. Make sure you subscribe and share the video. Have a great day.